Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a good Sunday evening or a Monday morning, depending on which side of the world you're in. Um, so, I guess I'm debating Haz, even though I personally think after the revolution we have to ban debates because debates are, yeah, debates suck. And they're kind of pointless other than, well, but it does help me with the YouTube algorithm, so I guess that's good. Um, what else? That's about it. But
He's here, so
uh,
I'll bring him on stream now.
awesome. So hi Haz, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So you're in LA, I take it?
No, I'm in Michigan.
Oh, I'm from Michigan. My parents live in Kalamazoo.
Oh yeah, I'm more from Eastern Michigan.
In near the Dearborn area. I went to school in Ann Arbor I lived there for like a long time.
Interesting. Yeah, I know about Ann Arbor, but yeah, I'm more from the Dearborn.
Oh yeah. I worked in about Dearborn for about 2 years. It's actually one of the nicer cities in Michigan. It's like very cultured. There's a lot of hookah bars and yeah.
Oh, interesting. Um, yeah.
So yeah. I'm trying to remember what my favorite restaurant was, but have actually Royal Oak has some really cool bars too. Have you been there?
Yeah, Royal Oak's cool. Ferndale's a nice place.
Yeah.
Royal Oak. I think they're close. That whole area is really nice. And Ann Arbor's nice too. It's a cool
It's
place.
it's a college town, so
Yeah.
I feel okay. What I think is for people who are like between the ages of 18 and 25, Ann Arbor is cooler. But then as you grow older, people prefer Royal Oak because it has that same cozy setting, but it is made for a little bit of an older crowd.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that's kind of difficult for me though is Ann Arbor to me was very uh it's very hippie, if I could say
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
annoying
it's
sometimes.
very like hippie.
Oh yeah, like there are a lot of like boomers, like boomer-ish hippie types who are living all around that area, and it can be annoying.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else from Michigan in the chat? So yeah, it's cool. Well, next time I come to Michigan, you should come over to my parents' house. If my mom's really good at cooking Indian food.
Oh yeah. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. So let's see. I guess since you're the one who started this, just like I think the best thing is why don't you give us like your full position so I understand what it is that you believe, and then we can discuss it further.
Sure. Okay. So my position is basically that historically speaking, the default position for communists, regardless of the country within which they live, is one of patriotism. That the class struggle necessarily has to be national in form. Otherwise, it there's no way for its actual content to be given expression. So what that means is that even if you're a country like Imperial Japan, or even if you're living in Nazi Germany, right? German communists resisting the Nazis still must be German patriots. And the same is true for Japanese communists resisting the government of Imperial Japan and opposing the policies of Imperial Japan. So to me, being a patriot is an integral part of being a communist, so much so that I cannot really see any context or meaning of being a Marxist or a communist, or let alone a Marxist Leninist, without being a patriot. And to me, being a patriot doesn't mean agreeing with your government, or even identifying with your government, or even necessarily identifying with the institutional foundations of your government. It simply entails a love of your country and your people. um, but to me, I think the American context is especially significant because it's in America that we find more or less the origin of modern patriotism, in the form of the War of Independence, which to me I think has a special significance for communists historically and even today in the present day. Uh, so I think I would just begin with that.
Okay. So I think I have just a few questions to ask. The first question I'm going to ask is: you said that Imperial Japanese and communists in Nazi Germany had some kind of patriotism, but since they both kind of failed, is that something like why is that something like we should learn from? Like, why did it fail? Like, and how is that related to their patriotism? Like, have we investigated that?
Yeah, I think it's a long discussion, but I'll give a brief answer for both of them respectively. I actually think, in an ironic sense, German communists failed to pose a challenge to the Nazis because, in a sense, they weren't patriotic enough. And what I mean by that is that they didn't draw enough support in the deep German countryside amidst the German peasants and the German rural masses, which the communists at the time considered not an especially significant class because they had this kind of prejudice from the Second International of stagism, that there's just a more developed capitalism of the proletariat, and this means the peasantry are no longer a factor or relevant. As far as the history of the Imperial Japan is concerned, I'm not especially familiar with it, but what I will say is that I think this has to do with just the general history of Japanese modernity itself. Like, for example, Japan was introduced to Marxism in the same way that it was introduced to a whole lot of other kind of Western ideas. And why it is that communists failed in Japan is tough to say, but I think the whole experience of modernization within Japan was bounded up with political forces that were then existing. So much so that, like, those same political forces within Japan and Imperial Japan, I'm talking about the kind of elite that were sent to be educated in Western countries, as well as the industrial bourgeoisie. These actually often were the platform for Marxism to have relevance. Like, for example, these same people, even during the time of Imperial Japan, they were influenced. I mean, like, you could see that they were influenced by Marxism in the way that they were approaching in their economic policies and their developmentalism and in the terminology and phraseology that they would use to describe their country and economy. So I don't think that, but I think my wider point, as far as both of those cases are concerned, before we can talk about like what is a necessary, effective strategy to win power, I just trying to stress that even in countries whose crimes are so just uncontroversially egregious, even among bourgeois liberals, for example, in America, even in those extreme cases, it's not enough for German communists to withdraw their sense of patriotism and love of country, and the same is true for Japanese communists.
But we still have not addressed how, or okay. So I guess we've mildly addressed the patriotism. So you think that because the German communists rejected the appeal to patriotism, they were not able to recruit enough rural peasantry in the Weimar Republic. Is that what I'm hearing? I just want to make sure I understand this argument.
No, I think by patriotism, I really do mean tapping into the real foundations of the German nation and the country itself in the form of the German peasant, which and every peasantry in every country is going to be more national in character inherently.
Hold on. One question though. So the German country, as we know in the Weimar Republic, was kind of created by basically the Treaty of Versailles, where they kind of chopped off different areas. But before then, the peasantry in Germany felt patriotism to the Bavarisch kingdom. And I know this is because I read the book about Hitler's trial. So it seems like, how could they feel patriotic towards a country that didn't really exist for 2 years? And most of these German peasantry felt patriotic for the Bavarisch kingdom. and that's why they were mainly Catholic, and the people in the north who were the communists were mainly from the former Prussian Empire. So this whole patriotism thing is a little confusing to me. So can you clarify
Sure,
how this
yeah.
works with
So
the
what you're,
Bavarian kingdom?
yeah, what you're talking about is the fact that Bavaria was more rural in general. It was less
No.
developed.
I'm saying that. Let me just
Yeah.
get the quote out that I read from David King's book. But go ahead. Well, while I get the quote out, continue to make your point.
Yeah, by peasantry, right? It could obviously mean a lot of things. Usually, it just refers to the material, the masses who form the material basis of the country and the state. But as far as the origins of Germany as a country, this actually has its origins in at least the 19th century. There is a strong sense of a German country, even among the Bavarians and throughout the constituent, provinces of the Weimar Republic and as before then the German Empire. It's only with the Weimar Republic that you have, for the first time, an explicit modern German state. But the question of there being a German people and a German country um, was not really, that much in dispute. It's not like Germany or the idea of Germany was just invented with the Weimar Republic. After all, the Weimar Republic adopted the flag of the German Revolution of the 48. During the springtime of nations.
Okay.
So, and the German national project was a project of the German people, right?
But
Including
But okay, so this is what
Yeah.
I read from the book, "The Trial of Adolf Hitler." He says, okay, hold on. It says that by November 7th, however, Hitler had changed his mind. He had received word of Gustav von Kahr's rally following the night of the Bürgerbrau, and he feared that this event might prefigure a major announcement, possibly unveiling Kahr's own plans to march on Berlin or even declare Bavarian independence. But even if the speech produced no major results, which was more likely, Hitler predicted that all prominent leaders of the Bavarian regime would be together at the beer hall. So it seems like Hitler was appealing to the sentiments of not the German nation, but Bavaria, of the Bavarian kingdom, according to at least David King's book, The Trial of Adolf Hitler. So how can he... So it seems like there wasn't really... Can you try to explain how... Can you try to clarify what is the discrepancy between what I am reading from the book written by David King called The Trial of Adolf Hitler versus the beer hall push? It's the beer hall push and the trial of Adolf Hitler versus what you're saying about German patriotism. Because, like I said, it seems like the peasantry, which is the rural population of Germany who kind of earned their living, not unlike the gig workers of today, it seems like they were upset at the Versailles Treaty, rightly, because it was very punitive and it cut off them from their relatives, and a lot of them had relatives in what is now known as Austria, and what used to be the Austria-Hungarian kingdom. So it's a little confusing to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that the Treaty of Versailles, at the national level of Germany as a whole, I would imagine.
But Germany as a whole didn't really exist until after the treaty, and that's when it was decided, right? Because it used to be the German Empire, and then there was the Austria-Hungarian Empire.
Yeah, there was still a German country, right? There was
the German Empire, yes, but Bavaria wasn't part of that, was it?
Right, but the German people.
But the German people, you mean the German language-speaking people?
That's what the German people who were the focal point of the revolutions of 48 and throughout the history of 19th century German nationalism, which you can even say dates back to the Napoleonic Wars. I mean, they're Germans.
Well, it seems like, from my understanding of history, it seems like there was a big German language-speaking population in Austria-Hungary, the Prussian Empire, the German Empire, Bavaria, and believe it or not, even in the Russian Empire. For example,
Right.
the very first adherents to the Nazi Party were actually Baltic Germans who were upset about losing their slaves in the Bolshevik
Right.
Revolution.
Well,
So
the
it seems.
Weimar Republic, for the first time, established a German nation state, a state
But
of the
did the
German people.
Weimar Republic? But wasn't the Weimar Republic essentially established
By
by
the Treaty of
France,
Versailles.
England, and
Yeah,
America?
of course. Yeah,
So then, like, they cut off pieces of that used to be that had a like
right.
in Strasbourg that had a majority German-speaking population that just went in Ruhr Valley that went to France.
Right. But
So
the decisive thing is that the Weimar Republic, however abysmal and offensive and unacceptable the conditions of its establishment were to the German people at the time, was the first modern state of the German people. And by modern state, I mean a state in the modern sense, like the French state after the French Revolution and the American state after the American Revolution. A state that had not only had a constitution but was kind of uh, had a kind of formal rule of law, and was basically a state in which all citizens were equal before the law, and there was no recognized distinctions according to the law. The basic universalistic kind of modern state for the German people. So to me, I think the wider point is that
wait, hold
the
on.
manner by which
Well, 1 second.
communists,
1 second. So I'm again. This is from the same book, The Trial of Adolf
yeah,
Hitler by David King, and this is what he said. After all the bloodshed and sacrifice, the Berlin government dared to sign the Treaty of Versailles. At a stroke of pen, Germany would be stripped of 10% of its population, 13% of its territories, and all of its overseas colonies. And for many Germans, it was a piece of shame and unparalleled national humiliation. The monarchy and great power status were gone, and Germany was no longer the continent's richest and most powerful state. Oh, and then when it redrew the map of Europe and handed over German-speaking populations to France, Belgium, Denmark, then recreated the Kingdom of Poland and the new state of Czechoslovakia, and a wide gulf indeed seemed to separate the victors' lofty ideals and their actions. And to the horror of many monarchists and militarists alike, German was a republic for the first time. So it seems like, in fact, none of the parties could actually appeal to German patriotism, but in fact, there were some that appealed to Bavarian separatism, and others wanted to kind of appeal to like a let's move on forward. So I'm just a little confused. So can you try to explain this again?
yeah. So since the Weimar Republic was the first German state, right, proper, the state for the German people, a democratic state for the German people, so to speak. The role of communists would have then been to be German patriots in the sense of being the best representatives of the people and the country
Except no, but there was no
over
German
which.
patriotism because, like I said, if you look at the literature back then, the SPD did not appeal to the German patriotism. In fact, the NSDP, the Lebensraum propaganda was literally to give most of the Baltic Germans and the Prussian Junkers back their territory.
Yeah, but
So
the reason for that, and I actually addressed this in a debate before, was because the Nazis were unable to carry out the necessary land reform within Germany and appeal to the actual German.
no, they were not unable, but rather they were funded exclusively by Baltic Germans who did not want land reform, but they wanted their old lands in
Yeah,
Estonia.
I understand. I
Oh, yeah.
understand the point. The Nazis.
So wait. You said they wanted to carry, are not able to carry out, but they never promised land reform. What they promised was
If
Lebensraum,
you
which
let
is
me
new
finish,
land.
the point will be clarified very
Okay,
precisely.
no worries.
Yeah. So the Nazis had no interest in carrying out a land reform within Germany, right?
Correct.
And yet there was an issue of the land that was owned within Germany being concentrated within the hands of a small landowners and nobility and Junkers and all those kinds of people, right? So what the Nazis did was that to appeal to the national feeling and sentiment of the German people, who after undergoing proletarianization wanted to return to some kind of middle class normality or something like that, they promised them the land in the east, Okay. But the reason for this is because they were unable to engage in the kind of patriotic class struggle that was necessary within Germany that would overthrow the landowners and the elements of the ancient regime in favor of the German people.
But wait, the Nazi Party was created essentially by the bourgeoisie. So what we see
But
is
I
that in
thought it was
19
created by Baltic
well,
landowners
hold on.
who wanted their
So
land back.
in 19 Okay, so in 1918, a lot of the Baltic Germans were the first funders. So Alfred Rosenberg, we have an entire episode about this,
Yeah, I'm
where
aware
we
of
talk
that.
about the Landbergis family. It's kind of funny. Listen to our episode about Lithuania and the Fourth Reich. But yes, so the first wave was in 1918, where the first adherents between 1918 and were the Baltic Germans, who were mainly the funders, and they were the petty bourgeoisie. But then around 1922, that's when they were found the right character, which is Hitler. And then the industrialists wanted to basically also kind of get their territory back. So they were the second wave of the bigger funders. So now, so the Nazi Party never claimed to have a class struggle. In fact, if we read Michael Parenti's,
Hold on, I think there's a really big miscommunication, I guess, that's going on here, because I'm not trying to say the Nazis were engaging in a class struggle. I'm trying to say that because the Nazis were not engaging in a class struggle, they still at the same time had to displace the class struggle that was objectively a reality within Germany in the form of the German people's striving to respond to the modern predicament of proletarianization. And they did this through Lebensraum, which is promising the German people land to the east. And this effectively extinguished the class struggle within Germany between the German people and the monopolists, landowners, and so on, who were, owned most of the land within Germany, as well as the monopolists who, possessed a stranglehold on German industry at the expense of the democratic petty bourgeoisie. So when I say that the German communists were not patriotic enough, I just mean to say that they focused too exclusively on the urban proletarian class struggle within the cities, but didn't recognize the need for the application of the insight of Leninism, according to which the class struggle has to take the form of a kind of united front and even a popular front in an alliance with the quote unquote democratic petty bourgeoisie. This is Lenin's phrase for the
hold on. I'm a little confused then. So you said that they had to appeal to the German patriotism, but now it seems like you've redefined the patriotism to mean uniting the peasantry and the proletariat, which no one has any objections to. So it seems like
yeah, but okay. So patriotism. I don't know if you're aware of this, but patriotism.
Wait. So hold on. What did you say earlier with regards to German? Can you repeat what you said earlier, just so that I remember?
Yeah, that ironically, in a sense, communists were not patriotic enough.
Okay, but then we kind of try patriotic to which country? That's a little confusing to me because Germany,
country.
as in the Weimar Republic as a whole, how can they be patriotic to a country that didn't really exist?
Well, I think you're confusing a country with the form of statehood and form of government.
Okay, so what is the difference? Can you please enlighten me on this one?
Yeah. What's the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. A state or a government relates to the country in the same way that a superstructure relates to the base. A government in a state, I'm going to actually just quote Stalin, actually. I think it would just be better.
Okay, which piece is it?
So Stalin's quote is basically the Hitlers come and go, the German people and the German state remain. So the form of state and the form of government may come and go, but there is an objective German country that manages to possess a kind of material reality and objectivity that's not reducible to the ideological, political, and superstructural form that it's going to take.
Hold on. You also said that the German but okay, I just want to clarify. By German communists, do you mean the KPD or the SDP?
The KPD.
Okay, so you're saying that the KPD didn't appeal to the rural population?
Yes, I think they had mostly it was that they had a very
You
narrow view
sure?
and application, an ultra left application of the class struggle.
Okay, because I'm just looking at let me just
The issue with the KPD is that it came to a point where it had to exclusively draw its ranks from the most marginal and desperate elements of the population, the unemployed, even the lumpen, and so on and so on. And it was never actually able to constitute itself as a kind of patriotic or national, or whatever you want to call it, people's movement within Germany. It had to confine itself always to a kind of minority. It was never able to achieve the kind of Gramscian hegemony over the people of Germany.
hold on one second. I'm a little confused. Okay, so let's look at the election results. So in the 1924 May elections, let's look at the May 1924 elections. Let me see. I'm going to send it to Janet so that she can DM it to you or something. Because it it seems like okay. Let's see. See, it seems like majority of the KPD's here. I'm gonna send it to. It seems like the majority of the KPD's actually votes came from the rural areas in 1924. Like, if you were to talk about the SPD, yes, I totally agree with you. At the SPD, definitely, even in Donna Hirsch's book, where she talks about how the SPD failed, she talks about the detail of how they just ignored the rural proletariat.
Are you talking about Bavaria 19?
No, I'm talking about the German, the Weimar Republic's federal.
Yeah.
You said that the KPD did not appeal to the rural population.
Right.
But then I am looking at the 1924 Weimar Republic federal elections, and it seems like the districts that the KPD won came exclusively in the rural areas. So
which districts were those located?
here, I just sent it to Janet. She'll share it with us,
Okay.
so that you can
they
look
by
at it.
chance from Bavaria?
Oh no, Bavarians went mostly center.
Okay.
Because
Well,
Bavaria.
I wasn't actually familiar with the election of 1924.
Okay, but then you
this is
said,
interesting.
but you did claim that the
But-
Cape. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's actually besides the point.
No,
Because
it's
if
not
look
because
at-
you literally claimed that the KPD did not appeal to the rural population.
Okay, let's be logical here, right?
No, I'm
So
being
there's-
logical.
There's,
So
there's two important points though that make that not an essential point, right? The
No,
first one lies in the fact that even if by happenstance the KPD did receive the majority of its support from peasants in the election of 1924, this doesn't necessarily mean that the KPD was effectively or correctly appealing to them. It could just be that for reasons that it was unable to articulate and distill the significance of, peasants were swung over to the KPD. So it doesn't actually prove that the
okay,
KPD
so then in the
had a
December,
correct
okay,
strategy.
so hold on.
It could be, for example,
In December
that
of
the
1924,
it could be, for example, that the
hold on.
KPD did not correctly understand this. Like this has happened in the history of the American Communist Party as well, and the communist experience of communists in the West elsewhere as well, is that they receive support from a certain population and they somehow are confused, like, why aren't we winning from the urban industrial proletariat? We need to go hard to win them over.
Hold
more.
on.
So oftentimes theoretical dogmatism can get in the way of that. But regardless of the situation of the KPD in 1924, what I'm talking about is the decisive situation after 1929, when the Nazis, the Nazi Party rose to power, and the ways in which the KPD had to compete with them. So
No, the
the
KPD. Hold on.
1924 and the 1930s are not the same time period.
Hold on,
So if
hold
you
on.
can find me evidence that in the 1930s the KPD maintained the majority of its support.
When,
from
okay,
peasants, then
hold
your
on.
point would stand.
Hold on. No. What you don't understand is that the Nazis in 1933, so the first thing, have you read the book 4 Years of Political Murder? So what it shows you that in that between 1918 and 1922, there was basically a lot of murder of left, people who were members of the KPD, and they went mostly unpunished. But then what happened is that according to Donna Hirsch's, let me just read you this segment. Oh, here, you can continue to talk while I find the relevant segment from Donna Hirsch's book. But this is what she said about the KPD, what happened in 1920 after 1928. So let's see. Give me 1 second. 1924 was like the only time that. Okay, so basically in 1924, like the only time they kind of had a fair chance to run the election, because as like in 19 the SPD in 1924, 28 basically had a thing where they wanted to eliminate fascist violence. So they did this thing where they were like, oh, we're going to eliminate extreme violence on the left and the right, and then crack down on a lot of the KPD. So they weren't really given a chance to run in 1928. So, and then in 1933, they were just completely, all of them were arrested and sent to a concentration camp. So
Okay, so there's two things, right? The first thing is that we can clearly discern, all of that aside, I don't know.
No, we can't discern all of that aside, because you just claimed that the KPD failed to appeal.
It did fail.
No, hold on. Of course they failed. But first thing you claimed was that the KPD did not appeal to German patriotism. And then you said that that's why they weren't able to get the rural bourgeoisie population.
I actually never, quote, and this is an important distinction, I never said they didn't appeal to German patriotism. Patriotism is an idea, it's an ideology. I said they weren't patriotic enough.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Right.
What is
the difference is that they weren't effective enough in relating to the national realities of the German country. They didn't appeal to the German people enough, not necessarily to an idea of the country, but the country itself, which would make them patriots. Now, patriotism is a kind of abstraction. That's not really my point. I mean, Ernest Talman had many patriotic, quotes, and he had a lot of patriotic sentiment. But that doesn't actually reflect the overall policy of the KPD at the time, which was caught in a kind of ultra-left confusion. And the reason why I'm being a little bit dismissive of the points you're bringing up is we can actually discern a shift in policy, not only among the German communists, but the entire Comintern, from the third period to the period of the Popular Front. And the Popular Front was an admission and a recognition of the fact that the class struggle has to be national in form. It has to... requires acquiring hegemony over the people of your country, not just the industrial proletariat. And finally,
slow down.
I think this is the nail in the coffin as to the question of the relation to patriotism, is that when the Communist Party took power in Germany...
Communist Party never took power in Germany, except for literally never took power in Germany.
So what party took power after World War II in Eastern
The
Europe?
SPD, the Socialist the Deutsche, the Socialist Social Democratic Party was the one
That's absolutely not the case. The East Germany was a communist state.
Okay, no. We're talking about wrong war. We're talking about World War I.
World War II is what I said.
Okay, World War II happened after the Soviets liberated Germany,
right,
and so that had nothing to do with the German Communist Party. It had everything to do with the Soviets. So so if you have to wait for the Soviets to liberate Germany, wait 1 second, Haz. Okay, fine.
We don't even know what we're talking about.
No, we know perfectly what we're talking about.
You just cut me off. You don't even know what point I was trying to...
Okay, fine. I'll listen to it. Okay.
The point I was trying to get to that is that they were unequivocal German patriots when they were in power. They promoted German patriotism. They promoted a love of country and a love of people. Not just the Germany, mind you, after they took power, but Germany as a whole in its history. The Germany of Beethoven, the Germany of Kant and Hegel, and the Germany of even people like Martin Luther and Frederick the Great and people like that. So I think that's just it just settles it completely. When they actually got power, I mean, they were actually...
When they got power.
Right.
Okay.
But
so what you said is that, I'm reading one of your older tweets, and what you said is that if you, it seems like you seem to think that you need patriotism to get power.
Right.
But if it's after you get power, it is completely different, because then of course, yes, after you have a country that's a communist country, yes.
What you're basically trying to say is that, well, the point is invalid because it's the Soviets who allowed them to acquire power. But I didn't bring this up to demonstrate the necessary...
No. It's after. Okay, there's a big difference between after you have a country versus when you don't have a country. So
but if that was the case, they would only be patriots for the Germany that's ruled by communists.
exactly, that's exactly because a purpose of a state is to oppress one class over another, and the only state that is worth being a patriot over is the only country that's being is a dictatorship of the proletariat.
Patriotic sentiment for the Germany that existed before the communists took power.
Okay, can you show me a citation for this one, please? I want to see like some document.
Look at the flag. The flag came from the German revolutions.
Oh, no, that's not enough. Okay, show me a citation that shows you like why there's a flag. Like I've been showing you all my citations.
Okay, Esha,
yeah, you have to, because I literally read out of books
sure,
that
Esha. Yeah,
Esha,
I know you're an educated person. Do you really need a citation?
Yes, I do, because of course I do, because I keep citing all my sources, so you should cite your sources too, please.
But I actually was here to have a debate with you, not a
well, it's okay. Otherwise, it's just a free form jazz odyssey.
You, not a Harry Potter duel when we shout quotes at each other and shout phrases at each other.
Well, unfortunately, so you can't just make up crap, right? You literally can't make up crap. So let's start over again. Okay.
Hold on. Are you alleging that I am making up that German communists promoted a general sense of German national pride?
I don't know what a general sense of German. You keep changing. Okay, I don't understand what a general sense of
for German history as a whole. Not
okay. Well, I don't understand what you mean. So can you send me an example?
Okay, I gave you the example of the flag. How about the marches? They retained the Prussian marches.
Hold on. I don't know what the Prussian. Okay, what are Prussian marches? Hold on. So tell me what a Prussian march is.
They celebrated the anniversary of the Protestant Reformation. They celebrated people like.
Okay, hold on. What is a Prussian march?
Sorry.
Well, you said they retained the pride. So what is special about what is a Prussian march, and how is that different than a general military march? Because
it's a uniquely Prussian national form.
How so? What does that mean? I don't know anything about military.
It's a form of military marching that originates in Prussia.
Okay, so it seems like according to the according to the New York Times from August 9th, 1979, it says that they used the Prussian march to sidestep the specter of the Wehrmacht era. So it was like it was a way to like not.
They could have invented their own communist march that is pure and devoid of the stamp of ugly national, patriotic realities, but they decided not to. And why is it on the anniversary of the Protestant Reformation they celebrated Martin Luther? Why is it that there was such a strong sense of German national feeling and patriotism under East Germany, so much so
because it was a dictatorship of the proletariat and they wanted to preserve it.
But it wasn't just the Germany ruled by the communists that they were celebrating. They were celebrating the German history, the German
country, that part I'm not 100% sure.
I don't think you're educated on the matter.
Yeah, exactly. So educate me and show me. Can you tell me more clearly?
East Germany celebrated the history of non-communist Germany as well.
I don't know yet. Can you tell me about it so that I can learn about it? Because I don't know anything about this. So tell me.
Okay. Well, the German communists, in their education and in their media, and in their communications, promoted a general sense of national pride. And
it sounds like you're reading. Are you reading from Wikipedia? Because it seems like you are word salading.
The difference between you and me is that I have not had to consult one external source throughout.
I know that's because I don't bullshit with my audience. I make sure that they know I never lie to them. So I always consult external sources because I'm not a telepathic.
Esha, you don't bullshit. You just quote a bunch of irrelevant bullshit that has nothing to do.
No, it's not. No, it's very relevant because.
No, it's not relevant.
Okay, fine.
It's absolutely not relevant.
So you are unable to explain it beyond a same repeat, like acting like a robot. Okay, let's try this again.
I'm so confident in this that I think if you deny
I don't care about your confidence. I just want I want you to explain what the general sense of how is celebrating. Okay, so first of all, I don't even understand what you don't seem to have a very. Can you explain what patriotism is while I drink some cider? So explain how they. Can you just explain to me, like I'm a 4-year-old kid and I know nothing about East or West Germany? Just explain how they used.
Yeah, patriotism is a general love of country and people. And a country and a people, as the quote by Stalin, I mean, alludes to
Okay,
or
okay. So it's
demonstrates.
okay. So then in East Germany, you're saying that because.
Well, every time you ask me a question, you just cut me off after
Oh,
two
oh, sorry.
words.
Okay, I'll
What do
mute
you
myself
want me
while
to
I drink
say?
some cider. So go ahead.
Yeah, please drink your cider so I can talk. Um, a love of country and people, and a country and a people are not reducible to the political or ideological form of their expression in the form of the state, which means there is an objectivity to countries and nations and peoples that's not reducible to ideologies and to theories. I mean, Stalin makes this clear in his writings on the national question, and Stalin just said it directly. The Hitlers come and go, but the German people and the German state survive. Well, Hitler was in control of the German state. So how could Stalin be alluding to the idea of a German state and a German people that's just not reducible to the form it had taken at the time? Well, because he acknowledges the objectivity of national realities. And East Germany likewise acknowledged this in the form of acknowledging the history, traditions, and realities of the German people, even above and beyond the form it was taking at the time, which was led by the communists. The communists didn't just promote communist Germany, they promoted a sense of pride in the history of Germany as a whole, even before the communists took power.
Again, I don't understand how you can promote the sense of a history of a thing that didn't really exist until 1918. So that's a little confusing to me. So, what? So,
Germany did exist before 1918.
no, the Roman Empire existed. Like the German-speaking population were in.
There was no
Remember?
German nation state, but there was a German country and there was a German people.
Okay, so what is the difference between a nation state or a country?
Sure, a nation state refers to a political form, right? So a nation state is a political institution and it's a political form and it's a definite territory instantiated by a state. A country, on the other hand, refers to a deeper reality of the way in which, the manner by which people reproduce themselves materially, a common language, a common culture, a common history, and in many ways, a common identity. And those things preceded the Weimar Republic by hundreds and hundreds of years. The German ethnos, so to speak, had existed for much longer than the German nation state.
Uh, Wait a minute. Okay, so I'm getting a little lost here. So I thought your original argument is that you needed patriotism to get the proletariat.
It's actually not a utilitarian
So what?
thing where it's like it's only for the proletariat to do this. I don't believe you understand that Marxism doesn't isn't about creating forms from scratch. It's about correctly identifying and distilling the content of the form, which is the class struggle. Which means Marxists don't want to use patriotism or something. Marxists actually are patriots. They literally are patriots who do love their country and their people. It's not like a cheap
Wait a
scheme.
minute. Wait a minute. But did like wait? They do love their country after the revolution or before the
No, even
revolution?
before.
Okay. But how is? I guess that I'm not
Because
understanding.
countries are not created by political will, they're material
Yes,
realities.
they. Okay, wait. You're.
They're not voluntary constructions created by ideologists. They're material realities that exist across history that
They're
are
not
in no way
voluntary, correct?
reducible.
They are just. There are political boundaries sometimes. Um, maybe you're. Are you confusing maybe national identity with country? Maybe I'm trying to
No, a
understand.
country, no, even more so, a country is more authentic because a nation, in many ways, is oftentimes only finally given expression in the form of a nation state. Whereas a country is more broad. There's this kind of Soviet country, there's a Russian country, which is not reducible to any Russian nation state. There's an American country that's not reducible to any kind of American nation state. So, if anything, country is much more dense and much more real than nations are.
Okay, now I've lost track of your entire argument. So, can you? It seems like you wanted to appeal to proletarian, like. Okay, so can you kind of go through what your argument was? I guess because none of this is actually making sense to me. So, why do you say, like, what do you? Okay, so in your vision, how do you make a revolution happen with American patriotism? And oh, there's a question from LME. He said, "What is Marxist patriotism?" Has
So which one would you like me to answer first?
answer LME's question first. What is
Okay, sure.
okay?
Marxist patriotism is not different in essence from the authentic, everyday, real patriotism of the people. The only difference in the case of Marxists is that they correctly distill and possess insight into the material realities, the class realities, and so on, the historical realities that underlie the development of a country. So, in that sense, and by use of dialectical thinking, dialectical materialist thinking. So there is no, there's just like there's no proletarian culture, according to Lenin. There's no exclusive Marxist patriotism. The
No, no,
point
no.
is
Hold
that
on.
Marxists must be patriots.
Okay, I thought Lenin in the national question said that the proletarian should create their own culture, but because culture requires some kind of state power or hegemony to transmit over a long period of time. So he said that there were some expressions of proletarian culture, but um, so so yeah, but on top, but I'm still confused about
Lenin completely rejected prolet cult, which was a short for proletarian culture. He
which
thought this was
piece.
a complete folly and a
In which
fabrication.
piece? Because it didn't exist yet. Yeah.
Prolet cult. By the time prolet cult came into being, Lenin completely rejected them.
Wait. Okay. No, but okay. I think. Let's
It
see.
was an actual phenomena movement called the Movement for Proletarian Culture, Prolet Cult. But it
Okay,
wasn't
what
called
year
the
did?
Movement for Proletarian Culture, but it was called Prolet Cult, which was a movement to create a proletarian culture from scratch and annihilate the previous bourgeois and past classical culture and whatever. Lenin completely rejected this. He said the most
Hold on.
important thing for our country is for people to be accultured and educated in the treasures of mankind and in the works of modern civilization. We're not going to create our own thing completely from scratch. We're going to possess continuity with the treasures of the past culture.
Okay, I'm reading this. Are you talking about his piece from October 8th, 1920?
I'd have to double check.
Okay, so it says it is net. Let's just read this quickly. It is necessary to draft a resolution of the prolet cult Congress should drawn up with the utmost urgency that it should be endorsed by the Central Committee in time to have it vote at this very session of the prolet cult. On behalf of the Central Committee, it should be submitted not late. Okay, hold on. I'm confused a little bit.
So the relevant passage here is that Marxism has won its historical significance as the ideology of the revolutionary proletariat because, far from rejecting the most valuable achievements of the bourgeois epoch, it has, on the contrary, assimilated and refashioned everything of value in the more than 2,000 years of the development of human thought and culture. And then he said, adhering unswervingly to this stand of principle, the All Russia Prolet Cult Congress rejects in the most resolute manner, theoretically unsound and practically harmful, all attempts to invent one's own particular brand of culture, to remain isolated in self-contained organizations, to draw a line dividing the field of the work, or to set up a prolet cult autonomy within establishments under the people's
So it seems like
representation.
well, it seems like basically okay, so it seems like what he's talking about is basically like a culture that's detached from the proletarian, But
No,
what?
he's referring to the past 2,000 years of human culture and achievements.
Uh, this okay, but this still okay. Now it seems like we're veering way off topic. Okay, let's go back to where you're saying. Um,
There's
so
another quote,
hold on.
which also, since we're quoting, this, however, does not mean we can restrict ourselves to communist conclusions and learn only communist slogans. You will not create communism that way. You can only become a communist only when you enrich your mind with a knowledge of all treasures created by mankind.
Okay,
Um,
but
we
that
must
doesn't.
bear in
Hold
mind,
on,
for
hold on.
example, we talk about proletarian culture. We shall be unable to solve this problem unless we clearly realize that only a precise knowledge and transformation of the culture created by the entire development of mankind will enable us to create a proletarian culture. The
Okay,
latter
so
is not
hold on one
clutched
second.
out of thin. The latter is not clutched out of thin air. It is not an invention of those who call themselves experts in proletarian culture. That is all nonsense. Proletarian culture must be a logical development of the store of knowledge mankind has accumulated under the yoke of capitalist, landowner, and bureaucratic society. All these
Okay,
roads
hold
have
on.
been leading and will continue to lead up to proletarian culture in the same way as political economy is reshaped by Marx, has shown what human society must arrive at, shown us the passage to the class struggle, to the beginning of the proletarian revolution. And this
Hold
is
on.
his to the tasks of the youth
Okay,
leagues.
hold on. It says all experience of modern history. So, for example, you think that, so how would, like, I guess, the flag of the East India Company modified, like, how does that relate
The
to
East
the,
India Company was a private.
yeah, but the US flag is basically the East India Company flag modified, literally. So I just don't understand. You claim
Well,
you want to use the symbols, like
the
you.
similarity between the East India Company flag and the American flag has no bearing on the actual real world
So okay,
historical
hold
significance
on.
of the
Okay,
American
you made a
flag.
tweet where you think you okay. People who do you know why there is an American flag? All the crimes against literally the American flag is there because they appropriated the East India Company flag. So
I'm actually not aware of that being the reason for the American flag
okay, I am
having
aware
the.
of that because I read Gerald Horne's The Counter Revolution of 1776. So
Yeah.
it is literally the appropriation. Okay.
Well, let's look it up since we're consulting external sources.
Oh yeah, we have to, of course. Otherwise, it's just a free-form jazz odyssey.
Right.
Okay, Isha. Your mistake lies precisely in the fact that you see no other nations except bourgeoisie nations, and consequently, no, I know that America. No, I understand the reason why you should be very patriotic in the Soviet Union or East Germany or China, but okay, you have overlooked the who arose out of yes, but those nations existed. They arose out of the ruins, and in fact, that's the East Germany national anthem. You are talking
Hold
about
on.
patriotic. Hold on, hold on. I'm
There's
answering.
actually.
Wait,
Hold
one
on.
second. I'm just answering this one user. Okay. Thank you, Chris, by the way. I really appreciate this. So, what I guess, but what I feel like often with the revolutionary patriotism stuff is that you guys are wanting to feel patriotic about a nation that doesn't exist, like the one in the future of post socialist America that may or may not ever exist. So, like, why shouldn't I just feel patriotic for the United Federation of Planets if this is the case? I'm just curious. Okay, but go on. If you want to address Chris's comment, you can continue too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did some small preliminary research on the question of the origin of the American flag,
Mm-hmm.
and it turns out that this is actually controversial. Some have actually disputed a direct connection between the two. Others speculate that the main reason why there's a resemblance is because initially the flag of the Grand Union was not actually going to be a separate state from the United Kingdom. So adopting that flag was a symbol of loyalty to the British Crown from the very beginning. Um, but the after the Declaration of Independence, obviously, it no longer took on that significance. But it still became, the way in which things become the symbols of countries isn't some like intentional artistic design that adheres all of the intentions and meaning. It's a completely
Well,
arbitrary process. Why are some random symbols the symbol of countries and nations? Well, it's just a completely arbitrary thing. It doesn't have to do with the fact of what it comes to symbolize and comes to mean through the course of history.
okay, well, the American flag, I mean, would often for indigenous people symbolize, oh, we are taking your land, we're planting our flag here, you're gonna all die, and we're gonna kill you all. I mean, so it
It
seems
may
like,
symbolize that for indigenous people, and I wouldn't fault them for feeling that way when looking at the
okay,
flag of
so
the
then
United
for what
States.
about, okay, so
But
hold
then
on.
the duty of communists would be to give the flag a different meaning, not based on moralizing and virtue signaling to indigenous people, but by assuming leadership over their country, such that as the leaders of their country, they can make right by indigenous
Okay,
people and
so you
thus
are saying that we
endow
should.
different
Okay,
significance
so
and
you
meaning to the
hold on. You're
flag.
saying that it is the indigenous people that need to adjust, as opposed to the genocide.
I am actually not prescribing anything to
Okay,
indigenous
so
people.
then why do you
They
care
have
about?
their own
So
leaders, they
you're
have their own
basically.
tribes, and
Hold
they
on.
have their own organizations, which I have no plans on intervening in. I'm an American,
Okay,
and I
so
plan on
you are
intervening in the
basically. So
I
who's
plan
gonna
on
give it new
intervening in the
meaning then?
politics of
Um,
my country and my people. And
who
so
are your
far as
people?
indigenous people are concerned, I aspire to do right by them and make right by them, but I can't expect them to trust me at this stage. So I can just hope that in the future, American communists leading a communist America can earn their trust
Wait, 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 wait.
by through practice, Esha, and not through virtue signaling.
Hold
By
on.
burning the American flag through practice,
I'd
by actually
never
using the
advocated
levers
burning
of state
anything.
power to give indigenous people to do right by them, to give them the land that they require and demand, to give them the reparations that they see fit to that are necessary for their people's development and the necessary autonomy, and even if they so deem it fit, to complete territorial and political secession from the United States, so be it, right?
Hold on, hold on.
But the flag of the United States doesn't only mean what indigenous people view it as.
Oh
It
no,
also
hold on.
has the significance of being the symbol of America as a country and thus
What
the
is
American
America
people.
as a country besides no, seriously, what is America as a country besides slavery and genocide and colonialism? I don't see anything
Sure,
besides.
America as a country can be
Yeah.
defined even from the best examples of the uniquely American philosophy of pragmatism. That's how Bolsheviks
It's
thought.
not
Stalin even
uniquely
said,
American. If the Bolsheviks used it, that means it's not uniquely American.
no, the Bolsheviks directly referred to it as American. They said the Bolshevik spirit is basically a combination of American pragmatism and the Russian striving for what is it? Iron will. So I don't know. I forget exactly what they meant on the Russian side, but the Bolsheviks often made reference to Americanism and Henry Ford and the American
Oh
pragmatic
Lord.
spirit and all those kinds of
Okay.
things. The Bolsheviks were very much
Okay.
interested
Hold
in
on one second.
adopting the best
Okay,
of
somebody
America.
asked why my parents moved here because my dad had a PhD and the American government needed his PhD so that he could teach here. But most
Wait,
people,
wait,
yeah, hold on one second. And the reason why you should read Lenin's Capitalism and Immigration to understand this.
wait. What?
Anyways, okay, sorry. Okay, so Neil has a question for you, Haz. Haz, are you familiar with Gerald Horne? His thesis of the East India Company flag being the basis of the U.S. flag is obvious. Look at each.
Yeah, but I'm also reading other historians who reject this view, and they say that
Who's the other historian? Just curious.
his name that I'm reading now is Vikram Doctor, and he's writing for the Economic Times.
Oh, wait,
And
wait, wait,
another
wait, wait,
practical
wait, wait,
argument
wait.
against promoting corporate flags could be avoiding hubris. Countries and governments feel strong about their flags. Um, hold on. Others simplify the design into a diagonally quartered flag with some elements. Hold on. Let me get the exact one. East India. The East India Company's flag dates from the 17th century, long before the American flag was even thought of, and originally seems to have been just red and white stripes. At some point, the canton was added, was in office, transferred, not the red and white. The company flying using red flags on its ships, St. George's Cross, in early 1616. Hold on. American. I'm sorry. I'm doing all this research like
Oh, no, no,
right
take your
now
time. We have all day
because
long, so
yeah.
don't worry.
Hold on. The problem with Fawcett's theory, as he readily concedes, is that there is no clear written evidence that the Americans took the company's flag as their model. Yet none of the theories put forth for the origins of the flag are particularly plausible either. And Fawcett's company flag theory does at least have a strong visual link. It may never be firmly established yet. So it's basically we don't really know.
No,
Maybe
but
we
he said
can,
it has a strong visual link. So he's literally repeating Neil's argument where if you just put it next to each other. So
right,
um
but then again, these flags and their design and their use are like really ambiguous. Like why is it red, white, and blue? The colors of Britain. It's just these are
because that was
you have to consult a historian of the history of flag design
yes.
to understand this. It's not necessarily a statement that they're making that, oh, we are the East India Company's successor. I mean,
Oh,
by no means can you jump to the conclusion that that's the significance the similarity of the flags has.
okay. So Chris Morlock has a comment. Hold on one second. The American paper, which has been adopted by the. Okay, so that's a Lenin quote. Let me read that. So, can you? The American people have a revolutionary tradition which has been adopted by the best representatives of the American proletariat, who have repeatedly expressed continuous solidarity of the Bolsheviks. But okay, but I don't understand. I guess
And in that quote, he's referring to the 1776, and he elaborates it in the same piece. So
is this from the letter to the American workers?
yes,
Okay. But so also in the letter to the American workers, he says that your every dollar is drenched in blood, oceans and oceans of blood. So how do
yeah,
you
but
so hold on one second. Okay, hold on.
what does that have to do with the point about patriotism? I mean,
Well,
he
if
makes
your
it
every
very
dollar is
clear.
how do you feel love for a
Lenin,
country?
in that
Hold
piece,
on.
makes it very clear where he stands on the American War of Independence and the history of the American country as a revolutionary world historical event in history that communists draw inspiration from around the world. That Lenin even goes so far to say in that piece that the American proletariat will be inheriting the example of 1776, the revolutionaries of 1776, continuing that tradition by opposing the imperialist bourgeoisie of their own country.
But they
It's
didn't
almost similar
oppose
to
the, oh
how
no no no.
American
Hold
it's
on, hold
almost
on. He
similar
put
to
a
how American
condition.
libertarians,
He put a
rural
condition.
libertarians in the United States, oppose imperialism and the American,
They don't okay,
the
hold on.
overgrowth of the American deep state and the federal government on the basis of an explicit American patriotism. It seems that even Alex Jones is closer to Lenin than you are, in a way.
Okay, hold on. Let's read this. We have a question for you guys. There's a Haas clip where he said we shouldn't use the LGBT flag because it has been co-opted by Zionists. By that logic, why use the
I never
American?
said that. There is
Okay.
no clip anywhere that
Okay,
says
so
that.
can you? I have never seen this. So can you tell me what your opinion about the Zionism LGBT flag
I've
pinkwashing
never
is?
said that the LGBT flag was Zionist. I displayed a personal view that aesthetically, I don't really like the LGBT flag because it's just all colors, and aesthetically speaking, I don't like it. But I could see why other people would adopt it as their symbol. I'm not LGBT, so it's not really doesn't my personal aesthetic taste doesn't even really matter. But that's all I fucking said on that question. So yeah,
Ah, okay.
it seems that your viewers are following true to the left wing American tradition of just making shit up about people you ideologically disagree with. So
Okay,
I'm gonna make
so
it up.
well, sure, but I can't. Okay, so I don't understand. So can you explain a little, clarify what is it that what was the comment you made about Israel? I'm just curious. I don't know
I
anything.
did not say. I never made any comment saying that the LGBT flag is Zionist or is in any way exclusively related to Israel. I don't even know what the fuck they're talking about at all.
Okay, so I'm a little confused. Okay, so now, how exactly? So now I'm very confused about your argument. Okay, so you're saying, like, okay, so let's say that okay, were to accept your premise that patriotism can be used for revolutionary purposes. So if you had to rewrite or extend what is to be done, so can you tell us what is to be done? Like, how do we use patriotism for revolutionary
I don't
purposes?
think communists should use patriotism. I said communists must be patriots or else they're not communists.
What is it to be a patriot versus using patriotism?
Sure, to be a patriot means to serve your country and your people authentically.
Who are my country? Who are my people? How do I serve it authentically? Like, I don't
You
understand.
serve your country and your people authentically by opposing the establishment, by opposing corporate America, by
What?
opposing the private interest, the military industrial complex, and American imperialism, which actively works and conspires against the interests of the American people and even against American democracy
Oh,
when they
hold
say
on one
historical
second.
reality.
So can
So
you
that's what
explain?
it means to be an American patriot. It means to serve your country and serve your people. It means to fight for your people. It means to fight for
Oh,
your people for a government that is by, for, and of the people, which does everything in its power not to intervene in foreign countries and project itself
but
into the
hold on one
business of
second.
other countries, but to work at home so that Americans can live the most prosperous, the most cultured, the most spiritually elevated lives that they can live.
Okay, wait,
That's
wait a
the
minute. Wait a
purpose.
minute. So it
That's
sounds
what
like
the
you.
purpose of
Wait,
government
wait.
should be.
Are we talking about just like this is what I'm confused about. So how is this related to Marxism if it's just some random feelings you have because it doesn't really
This is the entire context that Marxism has had in history.
how
This
oh,
is
okay,
the
so I'm
only
sorry, but
context
this is like
Marxism has had in
really
history.
okay, hold on.
Marxism in history wasn't a bunch of bitter intellectuals sitting around who wanted to completely raise everything to the ground and build something
Basic.
new from scratch based on
Hold on,
ideologies
hold
or
on. Okay,
theories.
you said I'm an
Marxism was
American.
about establishing an authentic connection to the people. Marx himself was called Prometheus because he took from the heights of world historical philosophy of his time down to the people. He was the just like Prometheus stole fire from the gods and gave them to humanity. Marx was called Prometheus. He called the proletariat the ingenious soil of the people. He didn't think the proletariat was some separate
Hold
kind
on,
of.
but that has absolutely nothing to do with patriotism. It sounds like oh, okay. So patriot
Of course, it has to do
no,
with
because
patriotism
he
because
was said
insofar as the people have a character and have a form and are different, people are different. One of the ways you identify that difference is through their country. What nation are they? What country are they? What state do they
huh?
live under? All of these things are part of the ways in which
No,
you
I
find
think you
different
seem to
peoples in different
confuse
places in the world. The
patriotic.
Chinese people are different from Russian people. Russian people are different from French people. French people are not the same thing as the people in Uruguay. People in Uruguay are not the same thing as people in India. People in India are not the same thing as people in Syria. People in Syria are not the same thing as people in Ireland, and so on and so on. These are all different types of people
Okay, but it seems like
with
I
different
can't.
history, with different culture, different tradition, different state, and different reality.
So okay, so now assuming that okay, it seems like you're kind of word salading, but so now how is I still don't understand there's to me I don't see any logical thread between anything you said today. It seems like you're so
I think that's a most intriguing form of copium for you being unwilling to recognize just the plain reality of my correctness here. Like you can cope and say that you
okay.
can
Hold
try to
on.
reject my very clear line of argumentation by saying there is none and that it's all a bunch of
No, I didn't say there was
disjointed
none. I
nonsense.
said that
But that's
I
what I
asked
would
you to
actually
explain it
call a
again
cope.
so
I
that
would
you.
call that a cope.
Okay, I'm sorry. I asked you to explain the argument a little bit more clearly. So let's start over. So you said that patriotism, people. Okay, so let me just write down what you say so that we don't miss it. Okay, so you said that. So let's make sure. So communists must be patriotic in order to be successful, is what you're saying?
Not only must they do so in order to be successful, they must do so in order to be communists in the first place.
What is okay? Wait a minute. That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah,
Okay,
it makes perfect sense. Where does the word communism come from? Are you aware?
does it matter? Okay,
Of course it matters. We're
it comes from
talking about the
community or
meaning
whatever
of what
nonsense. Okay.
communism even means in the first place.
Okay, it mean okay, so it is a classless, as Marx defines it, it is a classless society, blah blah blah. The question
No, that's the eschatological Christian view.
no, it is not, it is
Pseudo-Christian view.
literally what Marx said
That's a
in
pseudo.
das
It's a
in
pseudo eschatological view.
okay,
Marx
hold on,
said.
I don't know what the word pseudo
Wait,
eschatological means.
hold
Can you
on.
tell me what the
Marx
word pseudo
literally
eschatological?
said.
Hold
Marx
on.
literally said,
What does the word pseudo-eschatological mean? I don't know what it means. So can you tell me?
eschatology refers to like a final end goal and final state of
Okay. So how do you spell eschatology? I've never heard of
that
it.
everything's leading up to.
Okay, hold on. Okay, let me just look up the word
I
eschatology.
think we should actually consult Marx himself on this
No.
question.
I don't
because
understand.
he
Okay,
makes
you
it very
hold
clear
on.
that
No. Let's not
communism is
consult Marx.
not an end
Let's
state.
understand the word pseudo eschatology because you used this, and I don't want to.
I said pseudo-Christian eschatological.
Okay, I don't know what Okay, let's start over. I don't know what eschatology means, so let me look that up.
eschatological.
Okay, I've never. Okay, so eschatology is the doctrine of last things. It was originally a Western term referring to the Jewish, Christian, Muslim beliefs about the end of history, resurrection of the dead, last judgment. But Marx is not talking about that.
He's not. But the perverters of Marx, such as yourself, are talking about
how
that.
can okay if
When
I'm
you
literally
try to say
quoting?
that communism just means a classless society.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
But that's not how Marx refers to. He says the opposite. Actually, Marx says communism is not an end goal. It's not a state. It's not an end state with which we strive to conform the world to according to our heads. Communism is the real movement which contains the sublation of the present state of things. We call communism the real movement. That's
okay, hold on. Engels said that what is communism? Communism is a doctrine of conditions of the liberation of the proletariat. But again, so you seem to be.
Yeah, Marx and Engels both.
Okay, hold on. Okay, now it seems like
not so much as an end state, as much as a real force.
Okay, so now how is this related to patriotism? Hold on. Okay, how is this related to patriotism? I'm a little confused now because
Esha, the issue is that my arguments, being fundamentally more profound, require explication.
Okay,
you
explain.
Just interrupt me, and you don't.
Okay, fine. I will mute and tell me when you're done with all the explanations, and then I'll ask questions. Go ahead.
But you can't ask me a question and then interrupt me 2 words in when I answer you.
I've muted myself, so you end. Okay, start. Tell me when you're done. First, let's see the question. Okay, what is the question we're answering again? Just making sure.
I'll explain it very simply. Okay, communism has its origin in basically the word common, communis, right? And what communism and socialism is referring to is a common social substance of a given society. Now, after modern capitalism, specifically, this common substance that unites a people and establishes a common economic reality of a people breaks down. People become proletarianized. They lose their land. They lose their traditions. They lose their sense of common reality with one another. And so communism intervenes to address this specific reality economically. What is this common object of our economic reality that has been lost, and how can we restore it? And that's why some of the first communists were in fact reactionary kind of communists, reactionary socialists, feudal socialists, and so on, because they saw feudalism as a restoration of feudalism as a return to what had been lost. Now, if the form of any given society is inherently going to be within a specific country, a specific civilization, a specific nation, that means that the only meaningful context for a common reality is going to be the common reality within the context of this country, this civilization, or this nation. Communism isn't something you impose on reality from thin air. You identify the common reality. And in the case of the America, one of the only ways you can refer to this common reality is by means of being a patriot, the common reality of the American people and the country within which we live. It is this reality that communists that seek to address, seek to relate themselves to. This is the only context within which communism can have any meaning. It's as simple as that.
So the first thing is that so I get okay. Hold on. Somebody asked a question. Isha, could you point out where Marx and Engels ever said, no, I did not say that. I've never said that they said communism is a classless, moneyless, stateless society. No, I never said that. I said that the first stage is the establishment of the dictatorship of the proletariat, and that's what they would define as socialist. So once you have
they never made the distinction between socialism and communism.
Yes, they did.
Lenin later made this
No.
distinction.
Okay, fine. Read from the Communist Manifesto. Marx literally says that the first stage is the dictatorship of the proletariat.
He didn't make a distinction between.
Yeah. Okay. No, he did. Okay. Communist Manifesto literally says this. So I can read from this. Give me a second.
I think you have maybe a hearing problem or a communication problem.
Perhaps. Okay. Let's check.
I'm not denying the proletarian dictatorship. I'm saying they never distinguished communism and socialism.
Okay. I'm gonna say
they used these words interchangeably.
Okay.
They use the words communism and socialism interchangeably.
I don't believe so. Okay, hold on. Let me read from the.
They actually did.
Okay, whatever. Okay, let's read from the Communist Manifesto instead of like.
Please don't read where he talks about the proletarian dictatorship, which is not under dispute. Talk about where he identifies.
Okay, hold on.
As a separate stage.
Okay, socialist. Okay, let's see. Hold on, I'm looking through this. Okay. I guess I'm still not understanding. Okay, so the first thing is, why don't we address my main objection? Are you familiar with, say, the Jakarta method? Or actually, can I just quickly show the clip of what the Contras did? Like,
yeah, I am aware of the crimes of American imperialism.
Okay, so then if you were to tell the proletariat every single crime of America, like, how can they feel patriotic about a country that kills babies with a sledgehammer?
What would be the context and the significance of doing that?
Okay, well, for example, so for example, in Afghanistan, the U.S. put in rapey warlords. So the idea is so that you can tell the soldiers, don't.
I actually have a response to everything you just said.
No, hold on. Okay.
That will save us time. It'll save us time.
No, I don't want to save time, but go ahead. I'm listening. While you do it, I'll mute, and then I will look for the quote.
Please. And I'm going to address this entire argument. No one's denying that there have been crimes of American imperialism in the American ruling class. But simply going to random people and just telling them this, the question is...
Hold on. Okay, that's a straw man. I'm not saying that you go, hey, death to America. That's really stupid. That's like a complete straw man. Like, no one's saying, hey, death to America. By the way, did you know that they killed babies with a sledgehammer in Guatemala? No. The idea is that if you educate people on the mechanics of imperialism, hold on. I need some minute. I let you speak for a long time, Haz, so you let me speak. Okay.
Let me know when you're done. I'm going to go...
So you won't listen to me? Okay, so I guess he's not listening. Okay, so he doesn't really... Okay, so the thing is that if you have child minor... Okay, so basically the way imperialism works is that you go down from each level, so that in Africa you have to have child slaves, and then the reason it keeps trickling up. So when you understand the whole system of imperialism and the fact that the US has been waging a war against illiterate peasants for the past 100 years, how on earth can anyone, like, you have to understand imperialism in order to break it down. And you need, basically, the only way I can think of to break down imperialism is to get the soldiers to basically do what Lenin said, turn their guns, i.e. not go and kill entire villages in Afghanistan, but to defect. So, how are you going to do that? Like, to me, it doesn't seem to make any sense that you're going to get them to turn their guns, like, instead of like killing entire villages in Afghanistan. Like, you have to explain to them the whole system, and then you'll notice it keeps happening and over. Indonesia, Jakarta, Vietnam, they basically fought against this in order to make sure that they have access to raw materials. They literally waged a war again for bananas. And so the way you can break the imperial chain with the U.S. proletariat, the only way... Is he phoning a friend? Oh no, is he phoning a friend? Okay. Phoning a friend.
Wait, are we done wasting time, or is it?
Okay. Sorry. So it's by just like, you have to explain to them this. So how
Yeah,
are
I
you?
mean, if you actually let me talk and just
I'll
don't
let you talk. Okay, fine. You can talk as long
yeah,
as you want.
the debate, this whole debate, like this specific point, will be over. It will be completely addressed. But I don't think you can like. Can you just not interrupt me?
Won't interrupt you until you say I am completely done, and
Okay.
you can interrupt. You can speak. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so we don't need another lecture on the crimes of American imperialism around the world and the atrocities committed by the United States around the world. And that's not under dispute and it's not under contention. The best manner by which the American people will be educated about the crimes of their ruling class and the crimes of American imperialism is through accentuating the internal struggle at home between the American people and their establishment. Now, you could educate people all you want about the crimes of America around the world and exact this moral guilt from them all you want, which is usually a way of just people like you just getting attention, right? When people feel guilty, one of the ways they're going to mitigate that guilt is by giving people like you attention and clout, right? That's this whole scam and this entire hustle that has been going on for many years. But if you actually want to educate people about the crimes and the inhuman depravity of American imperialism and the American government around the world, you participate and accentuate the objective contradiction between the American people and the establishment at home. Suddenly, the crimes of the American establishment will become very apparent insofar as these crimes become apparent in the war between the American people and the establishment. Through the course of the development of this struggle and in this war, the American people will see the hypocrisy of the establishment. They'll see its rottenness. They'll see the evil and this proverbial swamp of the American establishment, such that they will be open to all manner of education about the past. They will say, wow, there's so much we just didn't know. We're only on the tip of the iceberg. If it's this bad, just imagine the crimes before. Suddenly, the crimes of American imperialism and the American establishment will be given new meaning through the course of the development of a present struggle, not a focus on the past, but focus on the real objective class struggle in the present. And that is how the American people will become educated as far as the crimes of American imperialism are concerned. Not by holding them in a room and explaining to this. How are you going to get soldiers to rebel against the military? You're not going to do it by appealing to middle class morality like during the Vietnam War. You're going to do it just in the same way that the Russian soldiers were able to turn against the Tsar. You're going to do it by addressing the contradiction between the American people, among whom include soldiers, and the establishment. It's through the development of this contradiction that the same divisions within the military and so on will appear. That's what happened in Russia. Russia had a land reform. American people too aspire to have some kind of proverbial land rather than this aimless proletarianization of the gig economy and this future of complete uncertainty, being unable to raise families and live normal lives. Now, you are beginning as your starting point from the premise of thin air morality. I'm referring to the actual concrete material realities. That just about sums up the difference. There's no contention about the crimes of American imperialism or the atrocities of American imperialism around the world. And the fact that I'm even having to be associated with that position is just fucking outrageous. It's a complete straw man and has nothing to do with my position. As a matter of fact, I'm willing to bet that I pose much more of a challenge to the same criminal American empire than you do. The American empire thrives when people like you go and tell the American people that you're simply anti-American and you're not patriots. You don't even exploit the contradictions internal and within. It's by exploiting those contradictions that you're really going to bring this empire to its knees. I rest my case.
Okay, there's a lot of things that I have a lot of questions on. So the first thing is that the main difference between Tsarist Russia and America is that in America you're having a very nice flow of commodities. In that, for example, American soldiers have boots. Tsarist Russian soldiers did not have boots. In fact, the Afghanistan soldiers, the soldiers in Afghanistan, like, actually fled because they were hungry, starving, and didn't have boots. So basically, in order to get the soldiers to turn their guns every time in history, it's been through, like, pretty bad deprivation. But what I'm saying, well, most of the time, there's actually in Italy, they've been able to do it. In Italy, they kind of say around World War II, they switched sides and they did not do it via appealing to patriotism. But yeah, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that you cannot fight what you don't understand. So U.S. imperialism is a big monster that has never been defeated, and no one has a solution. Otherwise, like, there are billions of people who would have wanted to get rid of U.S. imperialism. So, and we also know that it's unlikely that within the American imperial core, even Lenin didn't think that there will be anything good happening in the imperial. He really doubted whether the imperial core was revolutionary. He didn't believe that. So right now, what I see the main problem is that way too many leftists are kind of like, oh, I support the Uyghur thingy, oh my god, free Belarus, and all kinds of things like that. So they're not basically showing critical support to third world countries where the chain is the weakest because of basically chauvinism and just not understanding the problem. So I guess what I see is that in the US, American patriotism is always used as a way to skip the dialectical analysis. For example, somebody's like, oh, for example, instead of like reading capitalism and immigration, they say America is a land of opportunity. Or the fact that instead of explaining that America has the WTO that just kind of like excludes everyone from intellectual property and literally steals things, they would say, oh, America has the best inventors. So the way patriotism as it is used right now is basically to skip the dialectical explanation and give people American exceptionalism and exception. And so I just do not see how we're going to be aiding third world countries in their struggle. So by appealing to American patriotism? If anything, it has been a tool for the bourgeoisie to get the U.S. soldiers to like. In fact, the American unions itself collaborated with the bourgeoisie in 1948. And ever since, the AFL-CIO, which I jokingly call the AFL-CIO, has a solidarity center right now trying to do a coup in Myanmar and Thailand. So for me, what I see is that I don't separate myself. So there are two things that can happen with the proletariat. They can be either collaborate with their bourgeoisie and the bourgeoisie could see the threat and get a bigger share of the loot, or they could stop the process of looting in general. And I just don't see how patriotism can stop the process of looting within the imperial core.
The first point I would like to make is that deprivation is always historically relative. This is a basic Marxist point in relation to its significance for politics and in relation to its significance for the economy. during the conditions that would lead to the Arab Spring in 2011, no matter how bad the standard of living of the actual middle class Egyptians in Cairo and in the major cities of Egypt, as well as throughout Tunisia and the rest of the Arab world, they were nowhere near as bad as the people who lived hundreds of years before. And yet, the people hundreds of years before weren't rising in rebellion against the Ottoman Empire, despite living in a comparatively worse living standard. That's because it's a living standard is just that. It's a standard. When there's a deviation from the standard that people reasonably expect to have, that is the source of revolutionary upheaval, revolutionary sentiment, and a breakdown of trust in the establishment. And that is always going to be something that's relative. Now, people mock, for example, the shortages that are probably going to plague the country in the very near future. I'm talking within the next 2 months, because Americans are so privileged and have access to a standard of living that most of the people in the world can't even dream of. But this standard of living is relative to the American people. If American people can't have meat for Christmas and can't have access to things that they expect to have for Christmas, that is going to be a source of discontent with the establishment. So this moralization over the flow of commodities isn't particularly convincing, because the degree to which people are going to have a rebellion against their state and their government reflects their relative standard of living and those expectations. As a matter of fact, that's why oftentimes revolutions actually break out among the most privileged sections of the society. This was true for the French Revolution, and this was also true for the Arab Spring. People who had expected to rise to the ranks of the upper middle class and increase their standard of living, even if when their standard of living didn't go down, just the fact that it didn't go up was enough to provoke this kind of upheaval. It didn't go up relative to their expectations. So talking directly about whether people have shoes on their feet and whether they have boots isn't really relevant. It's a completely vulgar third worldist view, whose logical conclusion is a kind of anarcho-primitivism, right? It's this idea that humanity must be reduced to its basest level of want in order to be truly revolutionary. It's just a complete nonsensical argument. And finally, you talk about, this is going to bridge to the point, you talk about the so-called third world and the need to have solidarity with the third world. But countries like Russia, China, Iran, the most formidable challengers to American imperialism, don't conceive themselves as third world countries. They conceive themselves as middle countries that are aspiring to possess a status of being developed countries with a good standard of living for their people. They don't want to dwell in being a third world country. The poorest of countries, if your theory were to hold true, then it would be the poorest of the poorer countries of the world that are the most vehement opponents of American imperialism. But as we can see, even Macron's France is a bigger opponent of American imperialism than some of the poorest countries on earth, especially with the recent row over something like AUKUS and the divisions that are starting to become apparent between the European Union and the United States. And you may laugh at this, but Mao Zedong, the figure that third worlders refer to the most to appeal to as the kind of intellectual forefather, Mao Zedong took notice of the contradictions within the American and Western and imperialist camp. He pointed out how in Taiwan and in South Korea and even in Europe, in the United Kingdom, there's starting to be divisions and challenges to American imperialism. In Mao's work, what is his work? Is it called The Wind and the Rain? Mao, American Imperialism, Paper Tiger. U.S. imperialism is a paper tiger. He explicitly says the United States owes debts everywhere. It owes debts only to the countries, not only to the countries of Latin America, Asia, and Africa, but also to the countries of Europe and Oceania. The whole world, Britain included, dislikes the United States. The masses of the people dislike it. Japan dislikes the United States because it oppresses her. None of the countries in the East. So he's not just talking about third world countries. He's talking about how, objectively speaking, there's a contradiction between American imperialism and this new multipolar world that had been emerging at the time. And this is not a contradiction based on a moral appeal to the crimes of American imperialism. It's an actual material world historical contradiction That's happening independently of morality, of someone's morality. So, and moreover, as my final closing statement on this matter, basing one's opposition to American imperialism solely on the basis of morality does nothing but, in material reality, strengthen the foundation of American imperialism, because it privileges the site of American subjectivity as a site of privileged moral universal agency. And it is actually American universalism in form, not necessarily in content, in terms of the ideological content, that is the fundamental basis of American ideological imperialism. American imperialism isn't just when you promote freedom, democracy, and liberty. It's even if you swap freedom, democracy, and liberty for Marxism, liberation, justice, and third worldism, it's still the same fundamentally American pathology. In form, it's the exact same thing. And that's actually what counts.
Okay, the first thing I'd like to clarify is that the Arabs, are you familiar with Atpor and Sergei Popovich? Because most of the Arab Spring was a National Endowment for Democracy operation in order to create coups. And so it is not, it is literally not like a revolution. In fact, it is a counter-revolution in many ways, in that they became, it was basically, like I said, Sergei Popovich bragged about how he created Tahrir Square as a way of it was like literally an experiment for him. So I would not use most of the Arab Springs. Tunisia was probably genuine, but everything afterwards was definitely used by the U.S. government as under imperialism. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the revolutions you mentioned, there are two kinds of revolutions, the bourgeoisie revolutions and the proletarian revolutions. The proletarian revolutions 100% of the time have happened in the poorest and poorest countries like Russia, China, Vietnam, Cuba. Bourgeoisie revolutions like the one has happened in France and other countries. As for, because of imperialism, the U.S. tends to install puppet government. So yes, many third world countries have a comprador class, and if you watch John Pilger's The New Rulers of the World, you'll understand how the U.S. cultivates that kind of bourgeoisie, like with the cycles. So I don't. So it's kind of like the U.S. installs a government against their will, and yeah, they're gonna continue to allow their population to be used for essentially slave labor. So I just don't I guess I guess it seems like I'm a little so what I see is that that's just the main thing that I'm addressing. So I would not use the national. I just don't think. Okay, so what I'm saying is that, yes, it is unlikely given our history. So if you have a new method that can shake a revolution from the imperial core, I'd love to hear about it. But I was just making a comment from historical observation. So I guess I'm not sure how much more time we have, but yeah, I guess what I'd like to do is, I guess, do you have closing statement or anything I guess, I think this was a very fruitful thing in that I understood a lot of where you were coming from. But do you have any last minute closing statements or any idea of what is to be done?
Quickly address that regardless of the circumstances of what actors were intervening in Tunisia and Egypt, I don't buy the idea that the revolution in Egypt was a foreign.
Sergei Popovich literally admitted to it. So I don't know what more.
I just don't buy that Mubarak was a revolutionary.
No, Mubarak was not revolutionary, but the Tahrir Square was definitely.
I am.
Mubarak. Okay, so what they did is they assassinated. Hold on. Anwar Sadat. It was a Ba'athist. They assassinated him.
The sentiment, the anger, the passion, and the culture, everything behind the Arab Spring in Egypt was more or less authentically reflecting the reality of the Egyptian people.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, and the same can be said about Tunisia. And to say the otherwise is just a flagrant.
Okay, so Tunisia, like I said, I was authentic, but like I said, the Carnegie Council basically has like I will send it to Janet and she'll send it to you and she'll share it with the chat. But the Carnegie Council literally explained how.
Regardless of the point, though, it's actually
The
not
point, no,
true
it makes
that-
sense. It makes a big sense in that if you have a CIA op, that's like much different
Yeah,
than
it
an
wasn't
authentic
like
revolution.
Syria. Egypt was not like Syria. It was actually a real. Authentic,
No, I'm sorry, but Sergei Popovich literally admitted to it, and the CIA doesn't
I
deny
don't
it.
know who that is, but it's.
Sergei
I
Popovich was
believe
the
that
guy who did
people-
the
I'd
Project
rather believe
Atpor.
the people from Egypt and what I know from on the ground than Sergei Popovich.
I'm sorry. Okay. Here's what.
But-
Okay.
Yeah, I
Here.
know foreigners were in NGOs were involved.
No. This was
specifically
literally an op designed, and Sergei Popovich kind of went a little rogue in order to prove that he had the method. So Tahrir Square, is definitely a national endowment backed operation. Essentially.
We're just gonna have to agree to disagree there. But
No,
as
well,
for
I
the
mean,
wider-
literally, I'm showing you them admitting
I
it,
can't
but
read
that's
that. I don't know what that is.
okay. Well, we'll send it to you. But okay. So in that case, well, if you want to tell people what time, do you stream every day?
Finally, I just wanted to say that it's actually not true that revolutions happen in the poorest countries. Russia was not the poorest country at the time, and China was also not the poorest country of its time.
I didn't say the poorest. I said in countries that are poorer, like in the. I did not say it was the most poorest country, but
I reject the poverty as an explanatory value for why revolutions happen. Revolutions happen for much more complicated reasons than
Yes.
just poverty.
No.
Regardless of the fact, the example of history should not discourage communists in Western
Okay, hold on.
Europe.
Hold on. Chris Morlock has a super chat question. Hold on. Let's answer his question. Don't ultra leftists simply sell indulgences, meaning they offer an absolution of sin by formally denouncing the sin? How is this material if the purpose is to find commonality of all people? Okay, I'll address it first, and then you can address it. No. So Chris, this is not what Marxists believe. Marxists believe that society is fundamentally a class conflict. So we're not trying to find the commonality between all people, but we are trying to get the proletariat to oppress the bourgeoisie. So it is a class war. The proletariat needs to fight, win. So that is what Marxists believe. And so we're not definitely finding no commonality. We want the proletariat to go beat and defeat the bourgeoisie. Do you have a comment on this one, or do you want me to read this out loud, or can you see it?
Really quickly. The view of the selling of indulgences is actually one that our collective had arrived at independently many years ago, and it's not just a cheap comparison. It's actually very deep ways in which you can see that the corruption of the Catholic Church and the current American left. The corruption of the Catholic Church at the time of the Reformation and the American left now, there's so many striking parallels and similarities. It's really interesting to investigate. It's in no way material to the purpose of giving expression and giving meaning and giving application to the common reality of the people, which is what communism actually is about. And the significance of the proletariat, as far as Marx is concerned, is precisely because it is the proletariat that, as a class, embodies the true universality of the whole people, as well as the fate that he viewed awaited the overwhelming majority of the people within the country within which he was writing. So, to answer your question, I agree.
Hold on. He has to. Wait. He also asked about the commonality. Hold on. There's one more question. Janet, can you bring this up just quickly, please? Sorry. It's fine. He also asked, isn't, hold on, let me just quickly get his second part. Where is it? I can't find it anymore. Okay, never. He asked something about, aren't revolution, some sort of, Chris, can you type your question again about the commonality so that Hazs can answer it? If you're here. If not, we'll wait about 2 more minutes. Let's see. Any other comments? No. Okay, no worries. It's fine. Uh, okay, so okay, he said you answered it. That's excellent. Okay, that's good. In that case, what days do you stream? How do people find you online?
Oh, thank you. I'm just twitch.tv/infrared show, and thanks for having me on.
Hold on, no, what time do you stream? Like, where do you have a
Oh, I
daily?
don't have a fixed schedule, but usually I announce it in the Discord or the YouTube. You can find us at infrared at YouTube, and we usually just make a post. But it's usually around 4 p.m. Anywhere between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. We will find us.
Okay, well, check him out. I really liked what you when you debated. What's his face? What's his
Vouch.
name? Yeah, Vouch. That was pretty good, and I saw that one. And then there's another one that I really liked. This like right winger, not like fake. He looked like a Persian inbred person. Socialism done left or something like that.
Yeah, social done left.
Yeah. Well. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us, and hopefully we can have yeah, we should continue this discussion like in a little while after we kind of understand each other's position a little bit more, and definitely keep in touch. It was really nice having this debate. Like, I liked that we were both mostly respectful.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Well,
for having me on.
yep, and next time we need to meet up when we're in Michigan.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.